The Singapore River is one of the 90 rivers in Singapore. It is 11 kilometers long and it started out as a small drain in the central region and is now the most famous river in Singapore. It is a small river but one with great historical importance. The mouth of the Singapore River was the old port of Singapore, being naturally sheltered by the southern islands. Historically, the city of Singapore initially grew around the port, so the river mouth became the center of trade, commerce, and finance. To this day, the area around the old Singapore River mouth, the downtown core, remains the most expensive and economically important piece of land in Singapore. Singapore River was the very lifeblood of the colony, the trade artery, the center of commercial activity, the heart of entrepreneurial trade, and a place which was frequented by the secret society, coolies, and the Tauke. It was here too that the Chinese lived on the south bank, the Malays in Kampong further upstream, and the Indians used to reside there too. Shophouses and warehouses flourished around the quay due to their proximity to trade during the colonial era, but presently house various bars, pubs and restaurants as well as antique shops.
The Singapore River was the heart of the town, and up to the 1840s all shipping took place at its mouth and along the crescent of Clarke Quay. However, the importance of the Singapore River in boosting the Singapore economy was greatest during colonial times. When Singapore was chosen as a British colony by Sir Stamford Raffles in 1819, the aim of the British was to make it into a trading port to rival then Portuguese-controlled Malacca, as well as to make Singapore a resting place for British ships to stock up on supplies and refuel when travelling to and from India and China. The British had introduced many measures so as to boost international trade at the Singapore harbour. The most effective act was the making of Singapore Harbour a free port, where ships carry out trading without having to pay taxes to the British. Singapore was the first free port, and many ships flocked to Singapore to avoid Dutch trade restrictions. The Singapore River is deep, and hence allows big ships to dock in the river. This improved trade, as traders could dock their ships at the port at the mouth of the Singapore River. Warehouses were built along the river so that traders could store their goods. The Singapore River was the central site of all trade and economy, and this generated a large number of jobs, boosting the Singapore economy. Without the Singapore River, ships would not have been able to dock in Singapore, and our economy would not have developed.
Nowadays, the Singapore River has become a recreational and residential site in Singapore. The river is now part of the Marina Reservoir after damming the Singapore River at its outlet to the sea to create a new reservoir of fresh water. However, the historical value of the Singapore River has not been forgotten. This can be seen by the many conserved buildings and shophouses whose interiors have been converted to pubs and restaurants. The bumboats still flying the river, bringing the tourists sightseeing, as well as the sculptures showing scenes from the lives of people when the Singapore River was the center of trade. Starting in the 1880s, there was heavy traffic on the Singapore River due to rapid urbanization and expanding trade. It brought in water pollution caused by the disposal of garbage, sewage, and other byproducts of industry.
In 1977, activities such as transport, boat building, and repairs were also found along the Singapore River. There were also people living on board lighters in the river, which causes oil spill and wastewater from these boats and lighters to further pollute the river. By 1977, the water in the Singapore River was heavily polluted, foul-smelling and completely lacking in aquatic life.
Pig farms and duck farms were either phased out or relocated to other places. The riverbed was also dredged and rubbish was removed from the river so that aquatic life could return to the river. After the massive cleanup, people can now engage in activities such as wayang performances on a bumboat, variety shows staged on pontoons anchored in the river, and boat races. Today, speedboats, dragon boats, paddle boats, and sampans can be seen plying on the clean waterways of the Singapore River. In conclusion, the Singapore River is arguably the reason for why Singapore came into existence. If not for it, Singapore would still only be a small unknown island and would not have been able to become a first world country in the span of 4 decades. The role of the Singapore River has changed with time, from the trade in the 20th century to tourism nowadays. The tides of time have brought with them change, as well as continuity to a river rich in history and heritage.